Hey adventurers, welcome to the crew. I'm Sealord Janda, and this is my Let's Play of Pillars of Eternity. We've just arrived in Defiance Bay, specifically the district of Copper Lane is where we seem to enter. I've seen on the world map there's something like five districts, so clearly this is the game's main city, I would have to say, and I would say there's a lot to explore here, so let's... You know what, actually, we're still really hurt. Okay, I can't camp in the middle of the town. That's fair, I guess. Well, we're gonna run around and see if we can find an inn, then. Ooh, cat.
Those walls surround the whole city?
Yes. Why can't I interact with the cat? What the hell, Obsidian? It's not stealing? No, I guess it's just a leaf. I mean, it's marijuana, but... Yeah, locals try and smoke the plant. Grants a feeling of calm and intense lethargy. It's definitely weed. But apparently no one cares if I take it. Oh. Some sort of protest. These animancers brought ruin on us all, and the Duke and his toadies do nothing. Can we allow these atrocities to continue unchecked? No. Seems they hate animancers here.
Good day to you.
What's up, Rowan? Good day, Silver Knight. Well, thank you. Thank you. Glad you like it. Rowan's arms are crossed, and his mouth is set in a grim frown as he watches the gathered protesters. He looks ready for a fight. He sizes you up. New in town, eh? You've picked an interesting time to visit Defiance Bay. All these refugees fleeing the frontier and finding the legacies no better here. It's the Animancers, Macron Scorch'em, and they nest in this city like rats. You mark my words, though, us dozens are going to put a stop to it. Okay, I think that I like Animancers, actually, but, so what you doing here? He gestures at the crowd, which buzzes with angry chatter. Trying to get folk to see reason. We're in the middle of a crisis, and instead of purging the nefarious forces from our city, the Duke is granting Animancers dangerous liberties. Do you know anything about animancy? It's the study and manipulation of essence, which any sane person will tell you is the purview of the gods. The Adherans at least had the sense to outlaw it, which is the only good thing you can say about them. It's not like magic, chanting, or the soul readings those ciphers do. It's been around since ancient Onwithan times, which is why you'll see animancers tinkering with old Onwithan artifacts. Kana raises a fist to cough discreetly into it. Half-true for Saul, but he's an enthusiastic performer, I'll give him that. He shakes his head. Trouble is, the Animancers got no idea what half those artifacts actually do. Not that they'll admit it, and that's probably true. Our emphatic friend is correct about one thing, at least. Okay, so what are you dozens doing? He taps his chest. We're an organization of interested citizens who want to free Defiance Bay from the dangerous influence of Animancers and the tyranny of the aristocrats who support them. We also consider ourselves a militia of sorts, seeing as the Crucible Knights are little more than a flock of training nobles in training these days. Just like a militia, the dozens, except for the training, and the discipline, and the code of honor. Alright, I'm getting a sense my companions don't like the dozens too much. His eyes gleam. And we're always looking to expand. The more people see things our way, the better for the state of the country. If you have any interest in hearing more, stop by Admith's Den sometime. The Expedition Hall. A lot of free thinkers in there can set straight all the nonsense the nobles and animancers want you to believe. Might even be some paid work there for motivated types. Okay, what can you tell me about the city? This is the capital of the Free Palatinate of the Deerwood. We started out as the capital of an Adheran colony, but we booted the flaccid scepter from these lands 150 years ago. How much of an idiot would my character have to be to not realize that this is the capital of the Deerwood? These days, we're a major port receiving trade and visitors from all over the world. But we, some of us anyway, strive to hold on to the pioneering spirit that earned us our freedom a century and a half ago. The city's divided into 5 districts: Copper Lane, First Fires, Andra's Gift, Brackenbury, and Heritage Hill. He ticks each off on a calloused finger. Okay, well this might be useful local knowledge at least. What's the deal with Copper Lane? This here is Copper Lane. He taps a scuffed boot on the cobblestones. It's primarily a market district, but you've also got the Expedition Hall directly north of here where you can join treks into the wilds. That's also where my fellow dozens martyrs and I tend to meet up with other concerned citizens. He points to a long, domed building west and north of your position. And that's the Hall of Revealed Mysteries. Eerie place, you ask me, but they've got the biggest library in the Deerwood. Kinda laughs. Eerie indeed. Might be less so if more kith stepped inside. Perhaps we ought to visit and see just what mysteries are revealed. Alright, what about Brackenbury? A noise of disgust rattles in his throat. The nobility that didn't sail back to Adir stayed there. Most of the families there trace their lineage back to old imperial times. Other than a lot of has-been nobility, you got Hadra House, where Lady Webb and her spies operate, and Brackenbury Sanitarium, the main cesspit of animancy in the city. He spits on the cobblestones. Okay, so Copper Lane is the merchant district, the market district. Brackenbury is the noble district. What about First Fires? That's where the revolution started, hence the name. These days it's overrun with politicians and panderers, but we'll take it back someday. That's where you'll find the Ducal Palace, the Valiant Embassy, and Crucible Keep. He shakes his head. The Crucible Knights were the original freedom fighters in Defiance Bay, but now they're just strutting peacocks with their eyes on fancy titles and their heads up their asses. There's an old temple of Wodka there, too. We keep it real nice for her. He winks. Okay, so that's the government district. Silver Knight, I'm probably not going to play Rule the Waves today, honestly. Maybe tomorrow. Tell me about Andra's Gift. Got the name because it was a wetland that was drained back in the Imperial days. Now it's a seedy district populated by sailors, common folk, and more than a few thugs, but it's a fun place too if you know where to look. He winks and elbows you. Look for a place called the Salty Mast when you're there. Other than that, it's mostly warehouses and abandoned homes. Okay, so that's the slum. Heritage Hill. He shivers. It used to be one of the more prestigious districts in the city. Heroes of the Revolution claimed plots up there next to an ancient Angwithan tower and the city cemetery. Had the best views in Defiance Bay. Attracts richer types these days. A lot of animancy patrons. He spits. Glances at the crowd and lowers his voice. You wouldn't have heard, but something happened over there a couple months ago. The authorities sealed it off, and they're keeping their mouths shut, but mark my words, animancy's to blame. You too, Silver Knight. Have a good evening. Okay, so this district was... Okay. This is Heritage Hill, and it had an old Angwithan tower. And now something terrible's happened there. Alright. Anything else? No, not really. Okay, so the dozens are anti-Animancer, and they're exploiting some kind of hostile popular sentiment in the city. Other than that, a lot of commoners around. And there's no map markers here or anything, so I'd say that's it for until we cross this canal. Lovely canal system, nice city. Well, this is one of the nice districts of the city, but... The calm waters smell faintly of refuse. Only faintly? Alright, we're doing pretty well then, honestly, for a medieval city. What's this say? The Goose and Fox. Okay, this must be a tavern. Alright, we need to sleep, so let's go in. And we need to sell stuff. There better be a merchant here. There's also a marketplace, so maybe that would be a better place to sell our stuff, really. I don't know. I don't know if there's price differences, really. Oh boy, this is full of more fancy NPCs with backgrounds. Nice sort of tavern. Pretty large. That guy's kind of drunk. Actress. This Stelgear's pelt is thick with dust and moths. The plaque below the beast reads, Maiden Falls, 2682. Roy Ningwen. You see a half-consumed ale slosh its way across the distance to his mouth, spilling across the stains of food long past. Glazed eyes glance at the brawl across the room, gaining fervor as the fight extends through the room. Another ale, he murmurs to the bartender, downing his drink and turning towards the wall. He pulls a picture from his pocket, a painting of a young child, all brown hair and green eyes, and holds it above a candle. It does not burn. Ales later, he begins to sing. The bar a mess of broken chairs and wounded pride, and they all listen for a moment before continuing their drinks, Svef conversations. His ache is felt through the room. His sad story reminds them of their sad stories. When he finishes singing, a silence hangs in the air, palpable among the smoke and the sweat and the yeasty smell of beer-infused exhalation. He's the first to break the silence, ordering a round of ale for the room. The general din of conversation sparks and resumes, but the mirth now is tempered with far-off memories and thoughts. Oh man, this guy's the party downer, apparently. Life of the place. Well, everyone's a philosopher here. Well, that's the way of bars, I guess. Bishop. Are you the bartender? I assume Bishop is a name and not a title, then. Earl of Levy looks on enigmatically from the canvas. Alright. Have fun being enigmatic, buddy. Irishti Tungsten. You see a fire burning slowly on the side of a winding road, unmanned. There seems to be no fuel, no wood or oil for it to consume, no hay or twigs. Despite this, it roars, crackles, wails in the wind. It takes you a moment, but you begin to notice a figure in the flames. Its shaking hands cradle a young face, molten red tears marring skin the color of coal. The boy cowers, flame coating him as he holds his knees to his chest. In the distance, a man approaches, faceless. He extends a hand to the frightened child, who considers it wearily before taking it. The flames die down, leaving his limbs and settling on his head like obedient pets. All tears dried, they walk together, fire and death, hand in hand. That's alarming. It might be a reasonable... I mean, he's one of these god-woken or something that have weird powers, so it might be a reasonable background. Macaris Solomatine. You see a wizard playing illusions in a town square, fingers plucking color and sound from the air and weaving scenes of beauty and fright. A crowd of onlookers gasps and cheers, enthralled with the display. All but one boy, standing off to the side, mouth agape. Green eyes are pale with wonder, vision after vision playing out before him. Something inside the boy clicks. Without warning, he bolts, disappearing into the crowd, pushing and shoving desperately. The mage finishes his show soon after, a giant silver dragon descending through the crowd and 1,000 stars exploding into nothingness. Collecting coins, he walks around the clapping crowd, bowing and nodding at each as he passes, until a small sack is dropped into his hands. The boy stands for a moment before him, small and still, and begs the wizard to apprentice him. He glances at the hefty bag, weighing it and the boy carefully. Finally, he nods and flicks gently at the bag, which disappears. The boy grins. "How'd you do that?" he asks, but the illusionist merely winks. You think this guy's the wizard or the boy? Probably the boy. The Vulture. Great name, definitely not a good person. You see a hand, curled and bruised, staked to the floor with a bent metal spike. Blood covers the floor and drips from the furnishings and walls. This man looks up from the body he's crouched over to survey the carnage he caused to the family in whose house he now skulks. 4 bodies total. A woman, 2 young men, and a girl lie blindfolded on the ground. Their legs are bound, both hands are attached to the floor with spikes. He's lifted the woman's blindfold and is currently doing something to her eyes. He pulls back a small blade and covers the eyes again, gently patting the blindfold. He stands and looks around, seemingly satisfied with his handiwork. Suddenly, his breath quickens, hearing someone approach the door to the room. He bounces in place, excitement almost overwhelming him, then rushes to the back of the room, concealing himself in the shadows. From his vantage, he sees the bodies are perfectly arranged, each one facing the door, welcoming the man of the house back, arms outstretched as if in embrace. The door opens as he slowly pulls another spike from his belt, the tip of his tongue playing across his teeth in anticipation. Should I have the option to just kill this guy on the spot? What a sick bastard. Jesus. Should back room. A dragon is outlined in charcoal pencil. The thick, jagged lines and the faint smell of sulfur suggest that the artist completed this sketch in a hurry. Cliff Dragon, White March 2685. Gotta be a little dangerous using a dragon as a live...
How do you do?
Live subject for painting. Okay, so it's the bartender. The man behind the bar is nearly the size of an Omoa. A handle protrudes from his back and his face is set in a stoic frown. He gives you a small nod. Here for a drink? There's a tiny pewter cup in front of him. He turns it in one broad hand, but doesn't drink from it. Lively place you got here. It was founded in the early days of Deerwood and Independence by a traveling scholar named Earl of Levy. He wanted a place where kith of all backgrounds could gather and hash out the issues facing their new country. It's one of those sort of taverns. He rests his elbows on the polished wood of the bar. It didn't take long for the place to fill up. Brackenbury aristocrats argued with dock workers from the Gift, while soldiers wrangled with politicians. Deerwoodans have never been known to turn down an argument. He takes a sip from the tiny cup. What happened next? Soon, kith were coming in from the farms and settlements, too. He waves his door as if expecting a crowd to bustle in. This place got even more popular with the Valiant sailors than the Salty Mast. That was the problem. He drains his cup. No matter what people say about fair-mindedness and civil debate, there's only so much people will tolerate. Errol found himself on the wrong side of an argument with the wrong Thane, and when he disappeared a few days later, some said it was the work of that Thane. He shrugs, spreading his hands over the bar as he surveys the room. But Errol knew which way the wind was blowing. If you ask me, he skipped town, hid out somewhere, hoping for rational minds to prevail in Defiance Bay. He cracks a wry grin. If only he could see it now. Yeah, I don't think he got better. So who are you? Name's Bishop. Used to be a scholar of Barath. Now I run the Goose and Fox and keep the regulars in line. He shifts and you see a war hammer strapped to his back. What more is there to tell? Okay, this tavern is rowdy enough that you need a war hammer to keep people in line? Sure, why not? So how'd we go from religion to taverns? The journey isn't as long as you'd think. It started with Hollowborn, and with this. He takes a black bottle from out of the bar and fills the pewter cup. It was my sister's son. He takes a drink. At the beginning of Waidwin's legacy. He was one of the first. I never expected there'd be so many after him. Tragedy's part of the cycle, but it's followed by rebirth. Yet every year, more parents were grieving for their Hollowborn children, and the gods were silent. So, no more faith? He leans forward, crossing his arms on the bar. Barath promises rebirth. Cycles. The only cycle I found was this one. He taps the bar. Have a drink. Have another. And another until I can remember how I got home. Wake up, come back. I finally woke up one day to see my family had packed up and left. For all I know, they'd left days before and I just hadn't noticed. But they were gone, so I came here. I've cleaned up since then. Not that I found my answers. Tosses the cup back. I've just stopped asking questions. Well, that's sad. Can I get a room? Okay, I can sleep on the floor. Dang, 25 common copper pieces just to sleep on the floor. Unbelievable. He's got 4 rooms: Merchant's Stay, Suite of Worldly Wonders, Vixen's Burrow, and Fletcher's Stay. And they all give pretty decent buffs, to be fair. I will sleep on the floor, I think. I could hire people, but I have a full party of actually named adventurers. He's got a dog. Okay. Come back to that. He's got, pretty standard food. I can fill my camping supplies back up. Pretty sure I can only, yeah. Okay, I have to read the lore for the Duke's own beef loaf. Beef loaf is a standard dish across all the Deerwood, and hundreds of families have been using the same recipe for generations. No one's quite sure how it came to be known as the Duke's own, but 2 legends are widespread. The first involves Admeth Hadrit, the Deerwood's first Duke, personally making beef loaf for his captive prisoner, the Glonfothan Galvanraged. The Orlin was supposedly so fond of the meal that he asked for the recipe and passed it on to his kin after his release. The second, more likely tale features an unscrupulous cook who worked for the venerable Black Hound Inn of Gilded Vale. She confided in myriad travelers that she had a recipe for the Duke's own beef loaf, simply her own delicious recipe, and sold it to dozens of people for outrageous prices. Each victim of the ruse went on to make their beef loaf with the Duke's own recipe, giving rise to the popular name. Makes sense, but I don't think you could buy this in Gilded Vale anymore, which is weird. Did we read about... I don't think we read about Ixamidal rice pan and the cookies before, but I don't think... And the sweet pie. Yeah, but I don't think we've seen the lore for the Pearlwood chicken. Pearlwood chicken is common among the settlers along the Pearl Coast and Defiance Bay, but its popularity is not spread far north or abroad. Locals claim the dwarves of Talanir were responsible for inventing the dish. Given the odd assembly of ingredients, often a notable feature of dwarven cuisine, many are inclined to accept the claim at face value. There's rumors that the Duke of Ozzy has become fond of Pearlwood chicken, supposedly using grey breast chickens imported live all the way from Old Valia to suit his particular tastes. As the dish is not yet popular in the Valian republics, the citizens of Ozia are not sure if they should try to emulate the Duke's rumored style or vigorously deny it to foreigners. Okay, then. Alright. So should I sell things? Probably. I think that I most likely get just as good a deal here as anywhere else. The generic stuff. Where did I pick up a black cat? Oh, was that the black cat that's undead? Yeah. These are all just highly, I guess I should look through and make sure I've got everything inventoried properly before I sell it. I mean, organized. I'll just buy the dog. Bought a dog. Small yellow dog. Singularly happy to accompany you. Panting merrily as it lopes beside you. Fantastic. Do I equip that, or do we keep the Black Hound? Maybe we keep the Black Hound. We gotta collect all the dogs, obviously. I guess I can put them in the chest, maybe, but gotta have them in existence. It's critical. Alright, who else is around here? Just more adventurer types? Lepitas Silvarum. You see an impressive gathering of wild Orlans in ceremonial dress, shaded by a copse of ancient oaks. Underneath the largest oak stand two young Orlans, hands clasped, eyes clear, as they promise to care for and love one another in the joining of their clans. An older Orlan steps toward them to speak, beard seeming to sprout from directly underneath his eyes, and declares their union complete. The jubilant Orlan clans carry the newly wedded couple away to their tent with snorts of laughter and crude jokes, leaving the older Orlan to sit alone beneath the age-old oak. He sighs, observing the scene in the distance. He whispers a quiet benediction, glad for their gladness, and melts into the trees without another word. He's seen enough happiness for one day. Fair enough. Seems like a nice fellow. Camera. Priestess or something? Oh, this is not just a woman sits by herself, spinning something on the table in front of her and watching it with furious intensity. It's about the size of a coin, and it wobbles over a crack in the wood with a metallic rattle. She snatches it with one hand and slams a half-empty cup down on the table with the other. This is not a good time. Okay, so I thought this was just going to be another soul read. You look like you'd use another drink. I'll get there. She takes a long drink from her glass. Just trying to calm down and trying to talk myself out of something foolish. What kind of something? She says nothing for a few moments, as if hoping you'll leave. At last, Kenra looks up at you and lamplight falls across her face. The purpling bruise is blossoming along her cheekbone. There's something I need to give to my fiancé Pernisk, only he doesn't seem to go anywhere without his new friends, and they're not exactly pleasant company. What kind of friends are these? They come into our house with their dead eyes and their black teeth. I'm not a fool, I know what it means. Pernisk makes me leave when they show up, but it's obvious what they come to do. Last time they came, I told them to get out. Let them have their fun somewhere in the gift, but not under my roof. She scowls and then winces, her fingertips gently probing her bruise. Would you like me to go kill your husband, ma'am? I'm not sure exactly what dead eyes and black teeth imply. Ah, they're doing drugs. Gotcha. Svef changes you, I guess. The Pernisk I knew wouldn't have squashed a spider. I never thought he'd... She trails off, still feeling the swollen, discolored flesh. Due to intellect 10, I will say I thought Sveff just made people lay around not doing much. Kaner shrugs. I don't really know. Seems better than believing he's always been this way. You want me to talk to him? Her hand rests on the table and she clenches it into a white-knuckled fist. There's nothing more to say to him. We're finished. I just want to give this back to him and have a clean break. She opens her hand, and a ring clatters onto the table. It was his grandmother's. Even after this, I don't have the heart to sell it off. But if I go back there myself, I know what'll happen. I lose my temper, and I'll probably wind up with another one of these. She points to her bruise. I wouldn't normally hand this off to a stranger, but people say you've got a good heart. If you give this back to him, he'll know we're done. Okay, sure. You don't mind if I murder him if... Oh, you do mind if I murder him. Unfair. She looks at you and nods. The house is north of here. Just please don't hurt him. As furious as I am, I don't want that on my conscience. But I was so up for murdering him for you. Are you sure? What's back here? I think I'm breaking into the storage room now. Yeah, I'm not inclined to rob the tavern. What about back here? Dwarf and an Orland debate philosophy on the other side of the curtain. Okay, these are the private rooms, I guess. The painting depicts Glanfathan ruins. The canvas bears the rough brushstrokes of a talented amateur. Ibril's Well, 2665. Oop. That's kind of ugly. Legacy good for business. Oh, there's two ways into here. I didn't realize. Are you just another soul raid, Brad? Yep. You see a mud-soaked clearing, rain falling to the ground in large drops. This man's lying on his back in the muck, his hands holding open the maw of an enormous stelgare that stands over him, its front paws on his chest. The heavy rain falls over them, playing counterpoint to the grunts made by the opponents. Dead stelgare litter the ground around them, and the man's body shows signs of a difficult battle. His clothing is torn, hanging in scraps in some places. Bites and scratches cover his arms and legs. A huge gash cuts across his forehead. Blood and water mixing as they run down his face and drip into the mud. It takes all the man's effort to keep the beast's jaws from clamping down. The man looks around wildly, till its gaze finally lands on a large axe lying barely within arm's reach behind his head, the rain slowly covering it with grime and muddy water. He looks at the stelgare and then back at his axe, grim determination on his face. His arms are shaking, and it seems he'll not be able to hold the beast back for much longer. He takes a deep breath, wraps his right hand around the stelgare's bottom jaw, then lets go with his left hand, freeing the top of its head. The stelgare's mouth snaps shut on his right hand as his left shoots out from above his head and grabs the handle of his axe. The stelgare grinds its teeth and pulls back, trying to free itself from his grip, blood dripping from its mouth onto his face. With a grunt that quickly becomes a bellow of pain, the man pulls his right hand down, bringing the beast's head closer to him, swinging the axe around as he does. The blade of the weapon pierces the stelgare's neck and it yelps, its mouth popping open as it tries to step backward off the man. Before his mangled hand can lose its grip, the man pulls and twists as hard as he can, trying to get the beast on the ground. Using the stelgare's resistance to pull himself into a sitting position, he brings the axe down on its neck again, and one final time as its head and his hand simultaneously come free. The head flies from his grip as he thrusts his hand behind his back to brace himself as he falls. As his hand hits the ground and his full weight lands on it, a second bellow of pain erupts from his mouth. Breathing heavily, he brings his now mangled hand up to assess the damage. The little finger's gone, lost somewhere in the mud. The two fingers next to it are twisted, broken, and torn, barely attached to his hand by small bits of flesh. He sighs, grabbing both dangling fingers with his left hand. He grits his teeth and pulls. Oof. Okay. So he's real hardcore. I guess we go upstairs now. Guessing it's just the rooms and probably more piles, more soul reeds up there if the Blackhound Gilded Veil's anything to go by, but might as well check it out and then we'll head into the rest of town. Probably get our inventory sorted out, because there's a market. Yep, just piles more people with souls. I mean, not that they don't all have souls, but scattered amongst such titles as Flora of the Living Lands, Unity and Disunity, and History of the Deadfire Archipelago, and treatises on the Colkland people are half a dozen travel journals held together with twine. Okay, let's read these people. I do find a lot of these quite interesting. I mean, I know they're all just, Oh, hold on, you're a quest, okay. I know most of them are just, Kickstarter backers of the game submitted stuff, but they are pretty interesting. Two-Tone Weaksel. An Orland man relaxes with his feet propped on the table. Patches of dark brown skin peek out from under a full mane of blue-green hair. He and the Orland woman with him exchange laughs and comments with the trio at a nearby table, and he spies a dagger in his hand. Spins a dagger in his hand. His hazel eyes watch you. You look like you've seen a night or two in the wilds. Joining us for a drink? Who are you guys? The name's Two-Tone Weaksel. The lady next to me is Key. We've had our fun with the expeditions, but we were hoping to enjoy a little peace and quiet for the next few weeks anyway. A man at the next table nods at you. I'm Dreadshot Dayton. This is Hurdy and Ilfa. We were part of separate expedition teams, but we both suffered losses and decided to band together. He takes several items off his fingers. Beasts, barbarians, Beowicks. It's a dangerous time to be an adventurer, but a prosperous one too. At the next table, Dayton raises his glass, and here's to many more prosperous journeys. Is there something else you wanted? No, I was just curious. Okay, you're all adventurers, huh? The Earl woman nods at you, a cup of wine in hand and a scepter across her lap.
Hail and well met.
Okay, so this is just an adventuring party. I can't really do anything with them. But Ilfa nods at you, a pint in one hand and a mace slung over her shoulder. Dayton's busy filing a spur off a small round bullet. A burly Omoa raises a hand in greeting. That's nice. And yeah, this is the 4 rooms they can sell you. Old Valia, Southern Coast, circa 2670 AI. These are going to be people's souls. Herod Raoul. You see a man standing on a dock. Sailors, soldiers, and prostitutes swarm around him, but he's watching the ship disappearing over the horizon. He should be glad his men didn't take his life along with his ship, but failure is almost as bad a death for a Valian. And the gods only know he hadn't fared any better in his family's mercantile business. It's almost a relief to see that last herald of his failure sail into the distance, sparing him the need to go back to his father and admit defeat once again. Besides, with sharp wits and an eye for opportunity, there's always a chance for a comeback. He pulls a flask from his hip and takes a long drink. There'll be time for that later. He adjusts the flap of his eye patch and finds the tower of the brothel. He plots a new course for the evening, a grin on his face. Okay, washing away your sorrows with women is not the solution, Putty, but you do you. Shana Gleam. You see a group of people standing on a clear patch of earth, surrounded by several motionless bodies. On the ground in the middle of the group is a small figure curled up to protect itself from the kicking feet of the people standing around it. This woman's there, apart from the group, holding an enormous sword. She leans on it, using it almost like a crutch, hunched over and breathing heavily. She stares at the people and grunts, pulling herself upright and lifting the sword from the ground. She draws in a large breath, leans into a run, and quickly closes the distance between herself and the group. A blood-chilling howl suddenly explodes from her. The mob freezes mid-kick and stares at the terrifying bull of a woman now charging it. She jumps at the last second, bending slightly, turning herself into a projectile, flying into the middle of the people assaulting the figure on the ground. Everyone topples as she flies into them. She hits the ground beyond them, rolling, leaping back up, and turning to face them. She plants both her feet and lifts her sword, surveying the field. Suddenly, she spins on her heels, swinging her sword with savage grace, cutting down the nearest of the assailants. Letting herself get pulled into the momentum of the spin, she brings her sword around, blade sideways, into the head of a would-be opponent. The bottom of the hilt shatters his temple, and he crumples to the ground at her feet. She looks up, rage-filled eyes daring the remaining 2 men to approach. After a quick sideways glance at each other, they turn heel and run. One briefly looks back over his shoulder, ensuring she isn't following him. She slowly lets out the breath she'd been holding and walks over to help the figure still huddled on the ground. Well, seems like a good deed. Anything else around? Yeah, I can't really take anything from here without it being stealing. Oh boy, a bunch of people in here. mustache Oki. You see a grin slide across the face of a man and onto the face of a woman, younger still than he. She moves closer in the tallow light, sure and slow, tasting the anticipation on his tongue, the desire on hers. The candle gutters, sending yellow-black light sneaking across his multifaceted eyes. She sits back, now all too aware of his luminescent horns and dust-stamped blue skin. His otherness leaves her breathless, but from fascination or horror you cannot tell. He reaches across a hand, trailing the line of her jaw, sibilant whispers snaking through the air, tempting, cajoling. Something in her breaks, and his grin slides back as he extends his tongue to lick the curve of her throat, pausing a hair's breadth from her flesh. The thing we spoke of, your husband. I shouldn't. He'd be ruined. A faint protest. The man wags his forefinger at her, tisking playfully, tracing a line with the finger down the length of her torso, causing her to writhe. He stops it just short. She gasps. No fair. That's cheating, she pouts, childlike. Not if we make the rules. The man winks, and he resumes his stroke. Okay. I'm gonna assume this is a bard. Baldur Akaria. You see a firm hand scribing notes from an ancient, surprisingly sturdy-looking tome. Script precise, pictures small but clear. The monk runs his fingers across the paper lightly, page after page, searching for something. The script is ancient, almost illegible, but he perseveres, scrawling stacks and sheaves of notes, transcribing the book into something more comprehensible. Suddenly, he starts scribbling hastily, eyes wild, pen a blur across the newly ink-splattered page. With a start, he pushes out from the desk and closes the tome, sending waves of dust to coast about the room, and grins widely. He hurries to the exit, notes piled under his arm, and a new adventure on his mind. Alright, seems like a fun guy. I can relate to this guy more than the other guy. Thanks, Kenny and McCreek. You see a man praying soundlessly on the ground, lips moving to some ancient and unknowable hymn. Lying in his hands, his sword sputters into blinding white light, banishing the darkness around him instantly to lurk in corners and shelves. He opens his eyes slowly, continuing his silent prayer as he adjusts to the new light, his face tight with concentration. He stands and begins to move deliberately towards an enormous iron door, strange symbols inscribed upon its rusted surface. His prayer gets louder, gains substance as he gets closer. Blue eyes burn with fervor as the glowing tip of the sword touches the center of the door and slides through. White light spreads across its surface, symbols flaring into life as the paladin chants. A gentle tone sounds ringing through the ancient structure, and the door begins to open. The symbols have disappeared along with the rest, and the paladin steps through into places unknown, bearing a light he's only now beginning to understand. Okay. Paladin origin story, maybe? And how about this room? Ooh, a bookshelf we can actually take a book from. The Most Unfortunate Tale of Favia and Bernat, a Valiant Tragedy. Okay. The pages of these old books are crisp and fragrant with the salt of a sea breeze. Well, they must be Valiant, which is surely the superior country in this world, since they're sailors. What could be better? Alright. Now, I think that's about it for this tavern, so we're going to head out. I never actually slept. I should do that, actually. Okay. Apart from multiple back-to-back loading screens, because I'm going to go immediately back into the tavern and sleep. And then we're going to go to the market.
Hello.
Yeah, we're going to rest in the common room. I'm cheap. Besides, this seems like... I'm sure there's probably some quests that cause combat or something in the city, but it seems like broadly it's a non-combat area, so I don't really expect to need the buffs. Thanks for watching, adventurers. New parts will be up every other day, or you can watch live on Twitch. If you did enjoy the video, consider leaving a like or subscribing. Have a nice day, adventurers. This is Sea Lord Janda, signing off.